right, go ahead. Thanks, Lucas.
Okay, everybody, welcome to the Broadband Technical Assistance webinar series. This first session is titled Discover Generation West Virginia. It's about empowering communities for a digital future. We'll go ahead and start with introductions.
Hey, I'm Alex. I'm the director here at Generation.
Stroud, I'm the Broadband Program Director here at Generation West Virginia and excited to be here.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lucas Lemonds. I'm an American Connection Corps member serving with Generation West Virginia. And I will now be tossing it over to Alex.
Thank you. So I'll just be real brief. I know we're all here to learn about broadband, but I'll share a little bit about Generation West Virginia and the work we do and why we do that work. So here's our mission statement here. We're really focused on supporting young West Virginians with key skills and career opportunities so they can stay and thrive in the Mountain State. And for us, broadband is a really fundamental piece of seeing that mission come to fruition. So here are the values of Generation West Virginia that drive our work. I won't read these all to you, but they are curiosity, commitment, and collaboration, which is very much, these are very much cornerstones of all of the work we do, but especially the broadband work that Annie and her team lead. And I'll spend a couple minutes here on our work to give you a little bit of lay of the land of the work we do and why we do it. So we have 4 core programs here at Generation. One of them is called the Career Connector, really has stemmed from truly our experience in supporting young people and supporting employers and finding those young people for their open roles. So we've had for years young people reaching out to us asking for support in navigating career opportunities or finding career opportunities. And likewise, we've had employers asking for the same thing, help finding that talent. And so the Career Connector is a bridge between the two. It connects job seekers and employers. And we do so on both sides. We support the employer with job descriptions, navigation of potential candidates. And on the candidate side, we support with resume support, interview prep, those types of things. And we even will go so far as to support an employer through talent recruitment services that we provide, and really like walking with those employers and finding 3 to 5 quality candidates for open roles they have. And we do that all throughout the state. Our fellowship program is an annual program that we use to help young people find their footing and advance in their careers in West Virginia. Oftentimes, fellows are folks in their mid-20s, early 30s who all do really share one thing in common, is that they love West Virginia and they're trying to advance and find ways to be more involved here. And so oftentimes these are folks that are in careers already and want some professional development support so they can advance in those careers. So this is industry agnostic. We work with people from across all industries in this program, from attorneys to accountants to nonprofit to the public sector, government. Fellows come from all different sectors, and these are three-day sessions over the course of 6 months. Some are virtual, some are online, but it's really been an impactful way to support young people in advancing in the state. New Force is our online tech school. It was a coding school. It is now focused on data analytics. So we just launched that data analytics program, and we are training people to be data analysts and helping them find careers. And of course, the broadband work that we do started as infrastructure work, supporting communities in finding grant opportunities. We would do grant writing, project navigation, even like pre-engineering work, really to help those communities get ready and apply to federal broadband opportunities. And now we've really shifted into looking at digital equity. What comes next? When people do have the ability to be connected, how do we ensure that they're doing so and have the access and skills they need to truly turn that into economic prosperity? So those are the 4 programs we run. You can learn more about that on our website, and I'm happy to talk with you about any of these if they might benefit you, your company, or your region. And there's just some quick data over the last year, some of the numbers, the work that we've done across our programs. So thanks so much for letting me give you a little bit of a high level of what we do at Generation West Virginia and why the broadband work's so important to making all of this happen, right? People have to be connected and they have to be able to use the resources so they can advance. So I'm going to pass it back over to Annie so she will take us really into the heart of today's presentation.
All right, can everybody hear me okay? I've been having some mic issues here with Zoom recently, so if you don't, please let me know in the chat. I want to make sure everyone can hear me here. Thanks, Alex. Again, I think when we're talking about all of this work and every time I'm out thinking about broadband, I like to remember the overall organizational goal, right? The reason why are we doing this at the end of the day? Why are we doing any of this work? And really it comes back to making sure that, everyone in the state has the opportunity to sustain themselves, have a good career, and, access the resources they need across the board. So, like Alex said, that baseline condition of broadband connectivity was identified in 2020 as being one of those critical pieces for young people specifically to stay. Again, we had a software training program, data analytics training program. Our whole organization works from home. And whether or not you're trying to expand in an existing industry or start your own business, access to consistent, reliable connectivity is required in today's world to be able to make that happen. So again, a little bit more, we have two pieces that we really focus on, starting with the infrastructure. West Virginia is not the easiest terrain to connect for a variety of reasons, but the low population density and remote and rugged terrain makes it especially challenging for internet providers to build out projects. And I'll talk more about some of the gaps that we wanted to address on that front. And then digital equity. If you haven't run into this term before, this is really the work to make sure that people have the skills, are able to afford service and understand how to use it safely. So this is all of those services that kind of come around making sure that people not only have the connectivity, which is the critical first step, but are able to actually utilize and take advantage of the opportunities that are presented. So next slide, please. All right, so why did we start with infrastructure? So, a big part of where this came from is when the project got started, this was before my time, the Benedum Foundation actually, I think, worked really closely with our team to think about this, because what we were seeing was that West Virginia broadband infrastructure projects were not receiving federal and state funding at the same level that surrounding states were. And so through a partnership with them and the regional planning and development councils, we put together a pilot program that was focused on wraparound technical assistance, specifically for infrastructure projects. This process worked really well. We were able to bring in over $45 million in state and federal funds, leveraging an additional $23 million for specifically broadband deployment and infrastructure projects. Next page. Another piece of this is we were very excited to work with Regional Optical Communications, which is a consortium of several regional planning and development councils in the state, along with a bunch of extra counties that joined in, focused on broadband connectivity. So the way that the infrastructure model worked for us is our local partners on the ground who are working with folks every day had done a fair amount of work on the ground to do some planning. So the regional planning councils had done a little bit of this, but through this big study, we were able to do it statewide, where essentially we mapped out, with the help of the Thrasher group, they did most of the work, all of the addresses and put together these kind of sample projects, essentially sample routes, cost estimates, all of the pieces that would be needed to identify a project. This mapped over 14,000 miles of fiber routes throughout the state. And the reason this is really helpful is this gives anyone looking at putting together a project, whether that's a provider or a community group that's looking at it, a visual of where those addresses are and kind of where some of the gaps might end up. This will need to be updated after our BEAD allocation is announced, but it was a critical first step and made it really easy for us as a technical service provider to say, here's a grant program. Do we have any projects that are eligible and ready? We had addresses ready to go, and we're able to kind of run triage on, all right, what are the pieces that we actually need to fill in for all of that? All right, next step. So onto digital equity. So this was a new thing. So I was hired to do infrastructure work. I got here right when the Broadband Infrastructure Act was just kind of rolling out to the general public as far as understanding what exactly that would look like. And if you aren't familiar with that, the BEAD program is a broadband deployment program. West Virginia was allocated 1.2 billion specifically for broadband connectivity in the state. The West Virginia Office of Broadband has been working really hard over the last several years to fulfill all of the requirements. And West Virginia is actually one of the first states to have closed the application window for their providers. And we should know, hopefully as soon as the next couple months, which providers are going to be covering what part of the state. We do currently think that the allocation will cover the unserved and underserved addresses in the state. But until all of that comes out, we won't know. But in the meantime, our technical assistance model focused on infrastructure was that critical first step, but it became very apparent that the next piece is going to be digital equity and inclusion or adoption. If you're coming from industry, it's often phrased around adoption work. So this is the work that, again, ensures the people who live on the road next to the fiber lines are able to access and adopt the service when it comes by their household. We had an opportunity through an Appalachian Regional Commission ARISE project that an organization called Connect Humanity got to work specifically on digital equity planning. We worked with 18 counties, the ARC most distressed counties for 2023 across the state to collect data, pull research on the counties, kind of provide the baseline for what the state of digital equity was specifically in those counties. We worked really closely with the state. The state has a state level digital equity plan, but this really allowed the counties to dig into their specific demographics, the specific challenges on the ground, and some of the solutions that are unique to those specific areas. We did host community workshops in each of the 18 counties to gather community stakeholder input and make sure that they had, the opportunity to provide us any other ideas. This is usually where the best ideas come from across the board. I think when you give folks the opportunity to share what they know about their regions, that's where some of the more creative and most long-lasting solutions come from. Next slide. So out of that planning process, we did create 18 county level digital equity plans. We were excited to have Lucas start with us in September, and he did a great job kind of taking those documents, which are fairly dense, has all of the information you'd ever want to know about each county and the state of digital equity into 2-page fact sheets that can be used for outreach and project development. And then we do have our ongoing digital equity steering committees that most of them have switched over to a quarterly cadence in terms of our meeting, but those are ongoing projects. We're really excited about a lot of this work, especially I think as it relates to the BEAD deployment work, because I think as we get more fiber laid, we have more people having the opportunity to connect. This work, community-based work, partnership with providers is going to be even more important as we try and figure out how to ensure that everybody knows how to connect to the internet, understands how to do it, and Generation West Virginia is here to go ahead and provide ongoing support to make that happen. I am going to switch over here and let Lucas talk a little bit about our ongoing efforts and projects that we're doing, and I may pop in as needed. So Lucas, go ahead.
All right, so some of our ongoing efforts, we do still do quarterly and monthly digital equity committee meetings. This depends on what the county exactly needs. So these are formed of community stakeholders that are focused on identifying community needs and developing actionable strategies to improve the digital inclusion and connectivity issues. I'm also in charge of that, so it's been great to work with these different counties. Another thing we do offer, like Annie was saying, is technical assistance. So we can provide project development support and technical assistance for any digital equity and broadband expansion projects you may have. So if you are interested in those or need help with those, please feel free to reach out to us, or you can sign up via the form on our website. You could also scan the QR code as well. Coordination with our digital equity stakeholders. So we continue to work with our stakeholders across the state and the region to help connect and facilitate these partnerships across West Virginia as well.
Pop in to make a note about that. There are a bunch of grant opportunities coming down from the state. So if you are thinking about putting together a digital equity or infrastructure project, there are several opportunities open right now, including the USDA Distance Learning and Telemedicine Grant. Community Connect is coming down from USDA as well. And then the West Virginia State Office of Broadband does have 3 sub-grants focused on digital equity that will be opening starting in March, April, and then May. We'll have more information up about that in subsequent webinars. This whole series is going to focus on how to put together successful grant applications, again, whether that's infrastructure or digital equity. So we'll definitely have more information to share about that. I also did want to share too that we're able to offer this pro bono or wraparound technical assistance. So again, it can be grant writing support, maybe it's legal help putting together partnerships, general project development. Are you excited about this but don't know anyone in the region? We're happy and able to make connections as best as we can. And this is thanks to some ongoing support from the Just Transition Fund, the Claude W. Benedum Foundation, and Microsoft Airband, who've all really seen the benefits of connectivity for all sorts of reasons. Again, not just the moral obligation that folks have access, but economic benefits and workforce and educational benefits across the state.
So other things like Annie was saying, this webinar series. So this is an ongoing digital equity effort that we work with. So the point of these series is to help you guys understand the tools and the knowledge to help you secure broadband funding, but also digital equity projects as well. This has kind of been my little baby for a little bit, and I'm glad to see it going to fruition. We do have 4 other webinars after this that we would love to have you guys at. And then finally, with partnership with the American Connection Corps, which is the company that I work with, and they host me with Generation West Virginia. So through that, I help do digital literacy trainings, such as North Star Digital Literacy, which is out of Minnesota. Correct, right, Minnesota, Annie? Okay. Through this, I also want to empower people to develop sustainable projects and support digital inclusion efforts all throughout the state and in certain communities as well. Anything else you'd like to add on that, Annie?
No, I just shared. So American Connection Corps is an AmeriCorps program through Lead for America, if you're familiar with either AmeriCorps Vistas or just regular AmeriCorps programming. And they are specifically focused on broadband access projects across the country. And there is going to be probably a host application process here for folks who might be interested in hosting someone. They do get more support than some of the other AmeriCorps programs. So if that's something that's interesting to you, please be in touch. And we're happy to make connections on that side as well. Lucas mentioned digital literacy. Again, if you're unfamiliar with that program, there's a program called North Star that includes a series of basic digital literacy assessments and then the associated learning modules and curriculum to teach people everything from how to set up an email address through how to use Word, how to do a successful career search, professional email writing, all of these skills that many of us who do a lot of our work on computers maybe take for granted, but for someone who maybe has never had reliable internet access at a speed that makes sense, they may not even have had the chance to develop those skills even if they wanted to. So there are a lot of resources around to help put together these kinds of projects and to help communities figure out the best solution to meet some of the challenges, again, to really ensure that everyone in our communities do have reliable, affordable access to the internet and the skills and the knowledge to safely utilize them to the fullest extent that they're able to do.
Okay, we're gonna move on to ways that you can get involved with Generation West Virginia. So there's many different ways that you can get involved with us. First off, that we'd really like to plug is our class of 2025 fellowship is now open. So if you know anybody who would like to do our fellowship, please tell them to apply now. They can apply online through our website, or you can scan the QR code as well. Another way you can get involved is you can apply for technical assistance like Annie was talking about. You can find that information on our website as well, but you can also scan the QR code. If you're interested in learning more about digital equity or being a part of digital equity efforts, you could join one of our 18 digital equity steering committees. Or if your county doesn't have those, we're always looking to start new. So feel free to reach out to us about digital equity steering committees. We'd be more than happy to give you all the information on that. And then the easiest way to learn more about Generation West Virginia and what we're doing, but also what's happening across the state, is subscribing to our GWV newsletter. All you have to do is scan the QR code there, or you can sign up on our website. It'll take you to a quick, easy form. You just plug your information, and there you go. You are up to date on all things GWV and statewide. And then finally, here is all three of our presenter contact info, and also ways to contact GWV as well. And that's pretty much our presentation. So thank you guys for watching. We're now going to switch to Q&A for any questions anybody may have. Oh, also, Alex just plugged this, and I better plug it as well. We do have our first ever conference for GWV in May. Alex did put the link in the chat to sign up for that and find out information about it.
Thanks, Lucas. Hey, could you guys share a little bit about maybe upcoming webinars and what comes next in this series?
Yep.
You have it pulled up, Lucas, or do you want me to?
Do you have it pulled up?
So, like I said before, this series is really meant to focus on specific topics around developing a successful grant program for either broadband infrastructure or technical assistance. So again, this one is really kind of the introduction, what we do, what services we actually do offer. The next one is going to be kind of an introduction to the types of grants that we're talking about and which ones you might want to have on your radar. Most of them will either be imminently opening or having just opened. That will be our February 18th webinar at 1 p.m. It's kind of laying the foundation. Session 3 is also going to be finding the right opportunity, so making sure that you're finding a grant that fits the scale of project you're looking at, and also thinking about the way that you're putting your projects together to make sure they fit what your funders are looking for. So if you're looking at, a smaller state grant, maybe you are able to do a more localized or county-based project. But if you're looking at some of these other ones, you might want to consider pulling together regional partners. Session 4 is going to be crafting success. So that's about how to really write and put together broadband access grants. And then session 5 is going to touch into some of the things that you might want to keep in mind about grant management and reporting requirements. I know for some folks, they might not have worked with a large federal grant before. Maybe they haven't worked with some of the reporting requirements that are going to be attached to any of these digital equity projects. So we want to make sure that before you kind of jump in, you have an idea of what you're going to need to keep track of on your back end for your organization, for your staff, the way you're tracking finances, mileage, all of those things look really different between, smaller foundational grants and when you get to some of the larger state and federal opportunities. So very excited. Lucas has done a great job putting this together. We've got a lot of good information to share. We'll be having some guest speakers on. And again, if you have any questions about any of our services, you're interested in putting a project together, and want to request technical assistance, please be in touch. We're here to help and happy to be here. All right, any other final questions or comments?
I'll ask one if you don't mind.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So, yeah, a little bit of background. So I'm a software engineer who works in the state of West Virginia. And one of the things that I sometimes struggle with is when I'm talking about why broadband expansion programs and the diversity programs, when I talk about why they're important, it's kind of hard to make people, to an earlier point, that are not as familiar with computers, it's hard to get them to understand why this should matter to them in terms of, economic development and things like that. Do you have any thoughts or tricks on kind of how you get that conversation going to kind of reach those people? Or is that something that you'll go through in a later
Yeah,
thing and
no,
I'm
I mean,
jumping ahead?
no, you're good. No, I'm happy to talk a little bit about that. I mean, I think the thing that resonates most with folks is giving specific examples, especially as more and more services move online. Even, being able to renew your driver's license online. I haven't been in the DMV in several years. I'm really excited about it because I just haven't had to make that trip and stand in line for a really long time. It depends a little bit too, I think, who you're talking with, as always, right? Depending on your audience, you're going to kind of think about what might be most impactful. But, we worked with a lot of folks that work with seniors, and, the needs that they face on a regular basis often revolve maybe more around staying connected to family and friends that live outside of the state. Or an example that I have used a lot, and I'm sure probably almost everyone on here has heard me say is, my folks had really, really bad internet at home. And my son, who's 3, which is wild, believes phone calls are exclusively video calls and was always confused about why he couldn't see them on the phone. And now that they do have good internet, he gets to see them, and it's been really wonderful for them to be able to have a connection and see whatever car setup he set up all over my living room and things like that. So, finding those personal examples, I think, helps people click. And then again, when you get to anyone in economic development and industry, I know for those of us here, it seems like it should be obvious that good connectivity should be that baseline, but even bringing up things like consistent credit card processing. I know a lot of people, a lot of small businesses in the state that struggle because their business management services or their credit card processors don't work consistently because their internet connection is too slow. Or thinking about marketing, we have this amazing resource in online marketing, but if it takes you an hour to upload a photo, that's not going to be an option. So, I think really hitting home all of those like small ways that folks may already be using the internet but don't think that they are. Healthcare is a big one, though. I will say that access to healthcare, access to telehealth, scheduling appointments, all of those kinds of things often resonate, and even the need for something like two-factor authentication, because I know some people have cell phones at home but might not have good internet, and even just logging into online banking can be a challenge sometimes if you don't have good internet on both of those devices. So I'm not sure if that helps fully answer your question, but I think especially the economic development piece when you're working with government officials and folks, I think it does really hit home because it does impact new businesses, existing businesses, and the quality of the workforce, because if they can access better education, then we have a better trained workforce moving forward.
That answered it really well. I mean, if I had $1 for every time I tried to buy something from a vendor at the farmer's market, and they were like, oh, I gotta hold my phone up just this right way to get connectivity. Like if I had $1, I would be working a lot less.
Yes, yeah, across the board. And we talk about tourism so much in the state too, and I think that's another important piece. Again, going back to small businesses, going to, you know, there's been a lot of really great studies done on the need for increased lodging and increased hospitality services in some of these really beautiful parts of our state. But if you're trying to start up one of those businesses and you don't offer online booking, it's going to put a major dent in what you're able to do. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and there's the health and safety. I mean, a lot of the folks that we have talked to and that showed up to a lot of the community meetings are emergency management. They have a lot of tools and resources that are available to them in other parts of the world and country that just aren't available here, even in terms of responding to emergencies faster, finding out where they are. You know, people talk about that golden hour between when an accident happens and getting someone to the hospital. If it's 30 minutes before you get to a reliable connection, that cuts their time significantly. So there's a lot of reasons. And again, I think it's luckily one of those things that if you've experienced bad internet, you need to explain. But when you're talking to folks who maybe haven't experienced what that looks like, providing those concrete examples, I think, is a really good solution. Great question, Cal. Any other thoughts or comments before we log off
May I have a
today?
test question for you?
Of course. Hey, Jerry.
What switch does the United States have that they flipped to shut down TikTok nationwide? Where is that? I mean, I always thought it was all kinds of servers, all kinds of people. Where is that switch at? Just curious.
Oh boy. Yep. Well, TikTok put their messages up as they wanted to based on what was going on. I will withhold my further comments on that. I don't.
Maybe Melissa
No,
knows.
Yeah, Melissa. Here we go.
Don't pull me into this, Mayor Jerry.
You're right in the middle of it.
Always.
I'll withhold my comments as well since Annie got to.
Well, thanks so much, everybody. Again, if you have any comments, questions, please feel free to reach out. We're an email away. And yeah, always happy to talk through. No idea is dumb. No question is silly. Please ask, because that's how we all learn. So thanks everybody for joining, and I hope you all stay warm in our single and negative digit temperatures that we're having here for the next few days.